All right. So today is the last day, and what we are discussing today is very important.
Yeah.
Handling large litter size from hyper prolific sows. Handling large litter size from hyper prolific sows. So it's modern genetics, maternal line modern maternal line genetics usually comes with large litter size. We see it in the CG36. We see it in proper authenticated T70. We see it with dam bred lines. We see it with different genetic companies. Modern maternal line genetics usually comes with large litter size. So the large litter size, obviously, it increases um, the profit that you're going to get. Because if you have a sow that does more piglets with the same cost of feeding, the same cost of infrastructure, then that means your profit margin will go up. However, there is a clause. It has to be managed correctly. It doesn't make any sense for a sow to farrow large litters, and at the end of the day, what is being weaned is just a fraction of what is farrowed. So, if the sow is not being managed properly, if the process is not being managed properly, then you're going to have things like high mortality. You're going to have weak piglets. You're going to have sows that leave the farrowing crate or the farrowing room really weak, and this would increase their non-productive days before you can get them back to where they can be served. So if the process of farrowing, if one cannot manage this modern maternal line genetics properly, then the result is usually very, very bad. So uh, CG36, which is what we are discussing, it carries opportunities for more profits, but with this opportunity also comes the responsibility. The responsibility to ensure that one reduces the incidence of high mortality from crushing, you know, incidence of weak piglets, and the incidence of burnt out sows. It comes with that responsibility. And this is why we have this meeting today and what we are going to discuss today. So, just a recap, we've discussed this in the previous session, and we've established that the CG36 is a high output maternal line. It is selected, and if you look at the brochure or even the flyer for the CG36, you'll see that she does, I think, an average of 80 weaned piglets in her lifetime. This could get up to 100 or even 120 weaned piglets. So she has been selected for high ovulation rates, for large litters, and strong mothering ability. So these are the key traits that she has been selected for: high litter size, high ovulation rate, and a strong mothering ability. So she's not just able to farrow a good number, she's an hyper-prolific sow, so she's not just blessed or selected for that high litter size. She also has the innate ability to mother those
Yes.
piglets independently. Um, However, what happens is with the large litter size is that it now challenges our traditional management systems. We need to understand that we are coming from a background where our sows were giving us average of 10 piglets, average of 8 to 10 piglets, which under the condition, under our infrastructure under our management systems, we could easily handle it. But now we are talking about a sow that is likely to give us 2 times of that number. So it's going to challenge our management system, and we need to find solutions. We need to find solutions to be able to handle it. Like I said in the previous slide, it comes with opportunity, but also it comes with a lot of responsibility. And what we see is that the CG36 is going to expose weak systems, but it doesn't create new problems. You know, it's really depending on how you look at it. It's an opportunity to expand your skill set to be able to create a system that can handle that kind of litter size. So it's not about it's not really a problem for a farmer who is determined to get the results that he's supposed to get. So let's um, let's look at what is an hyper-prolific sow. So like I said at the beginning, the modern maternal line genetics are usually hyper-prolific. We're talking about sows that under the right breeding management do upwards of 20, 21, 22. And as you know, we've had a CG36 in Nigeria that has done 25 total born with 23 born alive. So that's a hyper-prolific sow. So a hyper-prolific sow will produce more piglets than even the number of our teats. You know, because a lot of people were asking, a sow that farrows 25, she doesn't have 25 teats. So where would the other one suckle? She's an hyper-prolific sow. It's up to the farmer to create a management system to make it work. So she's going to consistently produce more piglets. So consistently is the key word. She's not just going to produce a high number as a fluke result, but she will do it on a consistent basis. They're going to have high total born, which means total born alive, total born, not even born alive, will be very high um, from a hyper-prolific sow. And then you're going to have, of course, a little bit of variation in birth weights, you know. And then lastly, one of the things we need to do now is we need to shift our attention. Having known that what we have is a hyper-prolific sow, we need to shift our attention not so much about the number of piglets that she is giving birth to, but the number of piglets that she's going to raise. So we need to optimize at the level of winning. Yes, she's going to give birth to 25, 22, 23, but our ability to give birth to win a good number from the number of piglets born, or even the ability to win all those piglets, really anchors on how the farmer structures his management. So their large litters comes with opportunity. It also comes with some concerns. It comes with some challenges. What are the real challenges of large litters? The first challenge is that of protracted or prolonged farrowing. So a sow farrowing 20 or 22, obviously she will not, the length of the farrowing time will not be the same with the one that is farrowing 8 or 12 or 10, you know. So you have the risk of prolonged farrowing. However, we believe that if the farmer is available to manage this process, it will give the farmer the right result. But if you leave the sow, especially first time parities, if you leave them all alone, then they might encounter problems, and this might not give you the desired results that you wanted to get. So prolonged farrowing is a concern. And one of the problems with prolonged farrowing is it increases the incidence of stew beds. So once a sow is about to farrow or is farrowing, there is a number of minutes where after one piglet goes out, the other one is supposed to go out, 5 to 10 minutes. And if this does not happen, it's a problem where the farmer needs to be available, either to provide oxytocin, or if there is a blockage in a birth canal, to manually insert their hands with gloves to try to clear the birth canal. So these are some real challenges that are associated with lag litters. Of course, with lag litters, you have some variations in the piglet size. So you might have maybe 20% of the piglets that come out weak, because of the length of farrowing time. You might have 20% of the piglets that come out weak or that come out a little bit underweight. So these ones can be managed to the point that you can wean them successfully. So most times when they come out weak, the farmer needs to know what to do. We'll talk about that in the next one or two slides. So the farmer needs to know what to do to ensure that even those that come out weak, that come out underweight, can be successfully managed and weaned. Another challenge of large litter size, obviously, is teat competition and the issue of colostrum. So, like we said, hyper-prolific sows, they're going to consistently give you litters or piglets that are even more than the number of teats. But that's not something to worry about. There will always be teat competition. If a sow farrows 25 and she has 16 or 17 teats, that doesn't mean she cannot raise those 25 piglets successfully. So we'll talk about how to address these challenges. And then colostrum too. How do you ensure that each of these piglets access colostrum, a sufficient amount of colostrum that will give them the right start to life? Um, Also, you also have the issues of higher crushing and starvation risk. You also have the issues of higher crushing and starvation risk. So, just 1 minute. So, piglets from high prolific sows are more likely to be crushed. And we have issues, things like farrowing crates that can assist to confine the sow so that she does not crush the piglets, but also there are also other measures that can be implemented easily. For instance, farmers can use crib box, to put the piglets when they are not available, when they are not available to supervise, they put the piglets in the crib box away from the mother. And this is usually the situation is usually very volatile within the very first 5 days when the piglets are not able to dodge the mother. But from 5, 6, 7 days upwards, you see that the piglets become very fast, they become very alert, and so the risk of crushing is significantly reduced. So you have the challenges. You know that this sow is hyper prolific, and she's going to give you a large litter size, but with some challenges. Challenge number one, prolonged farrowing. What can you do to address that problem if and when it occurs? Number two, more weak and low birth weight piglets. What can we do to supplement their feed or to enable them have access to the teats immediately after birth? Number three, teat competition. How do we ensure that each of the piglets in the litter have access to the teats? What can we do to ensure that each of the piglets have access to the teats? And then you also have the issues of higher crushing and starvation risk. What are those strategies that you can adopt to reduce the incidence of crushing? What can you do? If the funds to acquire farrowing crates is not available, what other local strategy can you adopt or implement in your farm to reduce the incidence of crushing. So we're going to take this and discuss this one by one. So
good, very good.
So now, the first 6 hours decides everything. And number one, colostrum intake is the number one survival factor. Let us understand the importance of colostrum. Colostrum is usually the first milk produced by the sow after farrowing, and it usually subsists for up to 6 hours, up to 8 hours, and it is actually very, very rich in protein, very rich in antibodies that the piglet require to survive. Piglets that did not take colostrum adequately are more likely to suffer from pre-wean mortality than those who have had access to colostrum. So colostrum intake is the number one survival factor. Now, all piglets must receive colostrum within 4 to 6 hours. So that's the very first thing, colostrum. What are we going to do about colostrum? So once the sow farrows, you have probably 20 piglets, probably 18, probably 15 piglets. She only has 16 teats, or in some cases, she has up to 17 teats, but she has given birth to more piglets than the teats that are available. We'll talk about it because the next thing for you to do is to do split suckling in such a way where you divide the piglets into two sets or two categories, with one category being the stronger piglets, the piglets that came out strong, and the other ones will be the piglets that came out weak. So we're going to talk about split suckling and how this solves the problem. But before we go into that, what are the things that you need to do to get ready for CG36 when it farrows? Yesterday, we spoke about breeding management, estrus detection, and breeding management for CG36. And we're very, very emphatic that having proper records really helps the process. So you must not do pen mating, you must do hand mating. That's one of the things. And with hand mating, you are able to record the dates. So if you know the date when the animal is served, and you add an average of 114 to 116 days, you should be able to predict with accuracy the exact date when the animal would, or the pig would farrow. So what do? You ensure that the pen is ready to receive the new piglets. Um, I saw one of our CG36 from one of our farmer newly farrowed, and the animal was black from all the deaths and dung. The piglets were black, and I was worried. Wow. Because the farmer obviously wasn't ready for the piglets, wasn't ready. And this is a lot of, this is a particular problem that we face. You don't have to cross and forget the dates, or cross without recording the dates. So he wasn't ready, obviously, but we thank God that he was able to quickly intervene and solve that problem. Now, you need to have a clean, dry, warm pen that is available, ready to receive the piglet from the CG36. You need to have heat sources ready. Very, very important. And I think we don't really talk about having heat source enough. If you are using farrowing crates, it's a little bit easy to implement this. If you are using pen, oftentimes people use charcoal pots to warm the pen, especially when the ambient temperature is low, whether it's very cold, so you can provide supplemental heat. But I think this period when we are experiencing temperatures as high as 38 to 40 degrees, it may not be so necessary because already the place is warm. Also, you have to plan supervision for the CG36. like we just said in the previous 2-3 slides, we said, especially for first-time parity, for first parities, it's important that you create a system where the farrowing will be attended to, because one of the challenges that you are likely to face is that of prolonged farrowing because she is carrying a large number of piglets. So you need to plan farrowing supervision to ensure that somebody is on ground when this animal farrows. So things like towels, gloves, disinfectants, colostrum support. We'll talk about that probably at the end. Please just write this and draw my attention to it at the end of the session. So you need to have access to towels, gloves, because when that's what I just said now, when the sow farrowed and everywhere was black, I told you just get a damp cloth, something, put in water, squeeze it, and try to wipe the dirt from the piglets, because all those things can lead to bacterial infection. So, managing the birth process. With those things that you have done, with those things you have put in place, when those things that in the previous slide, if those things are available, then what will happen would be they will significantly reduce prolonged farrowing. Farrowing supervision, or when there is a supervisor or an attendant on ground, it would reduce prolonged farrowing. I recall that one of our clients, CD36, the guilds gave birth to I think around 19 or either 19 or 21. And from the report the farmer gave to us, the sow was laboring pre-farrowing and during farrowing for up to a day, and there was nobody to help. And so she gave birth to a total born of around either 19, if I remember correctly, with a born alive of I think 13 or 14. So they had about 5 or 6 stillbirths. And all of these things can be narrowed or traced to lack of supervision. Because if there is supervision, oxytocin can be administered to the animal, can be administered to the animal. If there is need to, the farmer can also support by clearing the birth canal to allow the piglets to come out. So that is where farrowing supervision comes into play. So not just at the point of supporting the sow when she's farrowing, but also guiding the weak piglets to the teats. Because like I said, one of the challenges associated with having high number of piglets is the possibility of having some variation in piglet weight. So you might have about 10 to 20% of piglets that are weak. So when the attendant or the manager is available, you will be able to guide those weak piglets to suckle. So let's come back to split suckling. And we said we're going to talk about this because this is a core skill. It's a core skill essential to the survival of piglets from hyper-prolific sows. So what's split suckling? It's just like the name implies. You split the piglets into 2 groups. The ones that are stronger, immediately they farrow. Naturally, they have access to new piglets. They have access to the teats. Sorry. The ones that are stronger, they have access to the teats. While the ones that are weak, may struggle to access it. They may even struggle to compete with the stronger piglets. So what is required? What is required is once she completes the farrowing process, the stronger ones they've already accessed the teats and they're suckling, you temporarily remove them. and you allow the weaker piglets, whether they are 5, whether they are 6, whether they are 7, to exclusive access to suckle for some time, probably 30 minutes to suckle properly, and then if you're having problems with distinguishing between the stronger and the weaker ones, you can get a marker, this pig marker. Mark, the other one can be red, the other one can be green. So you know, okay, these green ones, they suckle 1 hour, I remove them. The red ones, the red group, they suckle for another 1 hour, I remove them. This is very important. It's very important because we are dealing with numbers now. We're dealing with a sow that just gave birth to 20 or 22, as the case may be, or even 25. So with this kind of skill, you'll be able to save a good number of those piglets. There is no reason why a CG36 that farrowed 20 cannot win 20. With dedication and the application of split suckling, it is 100% possible. So split suckling, you have to distinguish two groups. The first group are the stronger piglets. If you have a piglet marker, mark them green, and then you identify the weaker piglets, you mark them red. So the first group that have assessed the teats, you remove them. If you don't have a farrow crate, get a crate box. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can get a carpenter, he will do a crate box for you. You put them in the crate box. The second group, the red ones, you allow them to suckle for probably 60 to 90 minutes. You remove them. You do that for 6 hours, 7 hours, so they can get enough access to sufficient quantity of colostrum. Like I said, the more colostrum that the piglet has, the higher their chance of survival. So that is it. And you continue this process for the first day. By the second day, you would see there will be a little bit of equalization in terms of how competitive all the piglets are. But you can repeat the same process even for 2, 3, 4 days, depending on the situation on ground. You can repeat this process of doing these things. Of course, it will not be, as time progresses, it will no longer be 1, 2 hours again. The time we can do this randomly. There is also the issue of cross-fostering. So split suckling is the very first skill. Cross-fostering is the second skill. Split suckling, very key to the survival of piglets by hyperprolific sow. And then cross-fostering. And I have to say something about cross-fostering here. Cross-fostering really, really works when you do batch farrowing systems. And I think, Doc, you remember we did something about batch farrowing about 2, 3 years ago. And it's one of the most important components of modern pig farming, batch farrowing. Batch farrowing.
For continuous production.
Yes, batch farrowing is better than continuous production in handling issues like this. Because if you cross 3 sows or 4 sows within a 24 to 48 hours window, they should be able to farrow almost at that same time. So with cross-fostering, you can take piglets from one sow and foster on another sow and so on to ensure balance. Probably you might have one that did 25, you might have another sow that did 16, so you can restore a little bit of parity by distributing the piglets among the sows in that particular batch, But one of the things you need to know about cross-fostering, only after colostrum intake, because, some people think, okay, she gave birth to 25, 5, let's carry the 5 immediately and go and give to the other one. No, you can't do it immediately because the other one who probably farrowed maybe 12 hours before the other one, before the one that you're having issues with now, she's already exhausted are colostrum. So what she's giving them is just sow milk. But the second one is having colostrum. So you can only cross-foster after colostrum intake. You can only cross-foster within 24 hours of birth.
Okay.
Also, you need to match the piglet size. You can't carry tiny piglets and go and give to a group of very massive piglets. They will not be able to survive that competition. And again, never overload any sow. Cross-fostering is an option. If there is an opening, it's not mandatory. If you can continue to manage the situation, you can continue to manage a sow till winning. But if there is an opening where you have a sow that, she has less number of piglets, you can decide to increase number of piglets, to the point that she can take care of them. And as you know, pigs have high sense of smell, heightened sense of smell.
Yes.
So when you cross foster, you might see issues of rejection. Where hold on a second. Oh, 1 minute. You might get issues of rejection from the sow because she knows that that is not a piglet. She knows that that is not a piglet. So what we usually do is using a strong smelling liquid or something to mask the odor of the piglets. So you take them out and you put that smell, that you put that thing on them, all of them, and then you now return them to the sow as a group. So that's what you do to avoid
Rejection.
to
Rejection.
avoid any rejection. Yeah, to avoid any rejection. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. So, matching litter size to teat capacity. Now, there are number of teats. A sow might have 17 teats, but 14 functional teats. And when we say functional teats, we're talking about teats that actually produce milk during the lactation phase. So you need to be able to monitor and count how many teats that are producing the milk. So when you are doing your split suckling, you need to be able to match the piglets to the number of functional teats. So you will not, if you do split suckling, for instance, and maybe you have 25 piglets, and you want to do 10 versus 15, or you want to do 13, 12. And then for the piglet, for the sow, she has only 11 functional teats. Then it becomes, the aim is defeated. You need to be able to match the piglets to the number of functional teats, right? Never exceed our nursing ability, and then uniform litter. Because at the end of the day, when you overload the piglets without checking the number of teats to know which ones are functional and which ones are not, you are going to have uneven litters. You're going to have uneven litters. You're going to have a huge disparity because you're having probably a surplus of 2 piglets who will now be struggling to access a functional teat. So what you need to do when you are doing split suckling is ensure you confirm the teats that are functional. So if you have, because our 36 has 16, 17 teats. So if you have 16 teats, but at that time, you only have probably 14 that are producing milk, you won't go and split suck and take 16 and put there, because obviously you have a surplus of 2 piglets that are not going to access the teat. So ensure when you are doing split suckling that you match the litter size to the number of functional teats. Okay. Then how do you manage low birth weight piglets? Like I said, there will be piglets with that will come with low birth weights. There will be piglets that will come with low birth weights, and you will need to. Sorry, a minute.
Sorry, the low birth weight, we call them runs, is it not?
Yes, the runs.
Yes, okay.
All right. So let's talk about the low birth weight issue. Now, the low birth weights, just like you said, are piglets that usually call them the runs, but the runt of the litter, but they can also be managed. And you can manage those runs, and then at the end of the day, you wean them to a good weight after 4 to 5 weeks. So what do? Extra warming. Extra warming means, you place them in a very warm crib box, so that they can conserve their energy. One thing we need to know is that when the place is cold, the piglets will expend a lot of their body weight to produce heat for themselves, to warm themselves up when the place is very cold. So if the place is warm enough, then they don't need to expend their body weight to produce heat. So that's where extra warming. So that little body weight that the piglet has, the piglet is able to preserve it and add more instead of burning that energy to produce heat or to warm themselves up. Also, priority teat access. So if you have low piglet weight, during split suckling, you prioritize those piglets, ensure that they have access to the teats. Supplemental colostrum, if needed, and frequent monitoring. So there are products. I may need to check the name of these products, but we used to buy some products from PharmaPro I think about 2019 or so, from PharmaPro. Usually comes like a paste. We used to buy that product. Once we have, it's like supplemental colostrum or so, we put it the piglet's mouth, and then, those piglets, we don't usually have issues with them. So I will check. Maybe I'll make some recommendations if the product is still available in the Nigerian market. So that is that. So extra warming, priority teat access, supplemental colostrum, we'll get to that. frequent monitoring. So you monitor the piglets to ensure that their condition is good. So sow management in large litters, because we've been talking about the piglets, but we also need to look at the sow that is going to manage this high number of piglets. There are certain risks involved in managing that number of piglets: weight loss and reduced milk output. So, and this is one of the reasons why, if you recall the first day of this session, we spoke about nutrition. We also spoke about the reason why we insist that the sow should be served at 140 kilo, so that she can mobilize enough back fat deposits. One of the reasons, so it's not just about litter size, that's a consideration, but not just that. Now, we are saying that when the sow gives birth to this large litter size, she stands the risk of course, there's always the risk of having significant drop in weight. And one of the things you need to do, of course, is to increase the feed. There is a recommendation of providing extra 500 grams of feed or extra 250 grams of feed for every piglet that she's handling. So probably if she was taking 3 kilo of feed daily, if she's doing probably 10 piglets, if you are adding extra 250 grams, that would be extra 2.5 kg of feed for her to be able to both take care of herself, maintain her body score, and still be able to mobilize her body, mobilize the energy to take care of these piglets. Also, water intake. So you have to prioritize water intake, access to water, for the sow, and reduce the stress. One of the challenges that farmers face in when you are trying to adapt your pen to be able to warm the piglets and take care of the sow is this issue of stress, because the sow on her own needs a pen that is hairy. She needs hair. She needs a little bit of cold, a little bit of cold air to take care, to feel okay. The piglets on their own, they need warmth. So you see the two set of animals have two different needs. So some farmers, they would warm up the pen, and you see the sow is extremely stressed and frustrated. Let me use extremely stressed, because you are warming up the pen for the piglets, but you're also ignoring the fact that that is not what the sow needs. And when you have high level of stress for the sow, it will affect milk production. It will even affect our willingness to allow the piglets to suckle. These are stress factors. So you need to be proactive and find a solution to deal with these issues. So let's go to feeding the hyper prolific sow. So basically, we've just said it, multiple daily meals. I like to touch on that, multiple daily meals, because most farms, when they feed the sow, the lactating sow, almost the same way they've been feeding her before she lactates. So most times they do like, if they were feeding the animals once, they still continue to feed once a day. If they were feeding the animal twice, they continue to feed that twice a day, regardless whether she is lactating or not. But for optimum results, we recommend multiple daily meal. What does it mean? if you have been farming pigs for some time, you will know that the moment a sow eats, drinks water, she's with her piglets. The next thing that comes into play, she lies down and the piglets come and suck. Now, imagine that you are providing feed like that multiple times daily. It simply means that it will increase the frequency of suckling. That's the logic. So if I have to give her 7 kg of feed, I can decide to do it. If I have enough time, I can decide to do it 1.5, 2 kg, 1.5, 5 times a day to increase the frequency, ensure that she has access to meals multiple times daily. Also, you need high quality lactation diets. It was yesterday or the day before yesterday where I said that there are 2 most expensive feed in pig production, and it's actually incidental to whatever you are doing as a pig farmer. Winner, starter feed, because if you do not give the piglets the best start in life that they require, they are going to be dealing with runts or stagnated growth or stunted growth throughout that animal's life cycle, and that's not good for business. And then the second one is lactation diets. So if lactation diet is not enriched with high energy and high protein, then you're going to have a sow that will exit the farrowing room in very terrible body condition, which may take her sometimes up to a month or 2 to regain her body score for further breeding. So you need to have high quality lactation diets. And then, of course, unrestricted access to clean water. So let's talk about monitoring the litter. Daily piglet check. You need to check the piglets daily, not just to leave it to the attendant. You need to be able to supervise, because sometimes they might start having, even while with the mother, they might start having things like scouring, inflammation. Sometimes she might press some parts of their body, sometimes access to certain bacteria, E. coli infection, and all that. So you need to run daily piglet check. You need to run daily piglet check on the sow, on the piglets rather. Daily piglet check. You need to watch for scouring, crushing, and ensuring that the piglets have access to teats. Small problems escalate quickly in large litters. So you need to understand that this is not your regular 8 to 10 liter. You are dealing with litter size that could go as much as 20, as the case may be, more or within the 15 range. So if you are not proactive enough to deal with those problems or catch those problems early, then you might have some challenges. So overall, we've established that the CG36, with its hyper-prolific nature, presents significant opportunities, but also the farmer has a lot of responsibility to be able to maximize that genetic capacity of the animal. So what are the opportunities? What is the economic impact of large litter? If you are able to manage that litter size, what impact, what benefit is it to you? So you have more piglets weaned. Like I said, the discussion is shifting not just about the number of piglets that she farrows. The key question is, how many piglets does she wean? So that discussion will shift to more piglets weaned. You now have lower cost per piglet. Lower cost per piglet. If you are able to distribute the costs incurred during gestation and lactation, you distribute it to a large number of piglets, it translates to lower cost per piglets. And then, of course, with high litter size and the high number of piglets weaned, if you are able to manage this properly, it will also lead to higher sow lifetime output. But if you do not manage this, if you do not manage your hyperprolific sow, if you do not manage the farrowing process, the lactation activity, if you do not manage it properly, then it will destroy any potential genetic advantage that you intend to get from the sow. So, just to, as a recap to what we've been discussing in the past hour, these are the errors that you should avoid, leaving hyperprolific sows unattended to. I can list farmers who acquired the genetics that we're talking about, the CD36, and they left the animals unattended to during farrowing. And I've just told you that for most of them, they had or they recorded higher levels of stillbirths. It's not a mistake. It's not the fault of the sow or anything. It's simply because of prolonged farrowing. And so if you leave the sows unattended to during farrowing, you might encounter this issue. So for you to do this, to ensure that this does not happen, you have to keep proper records to know the time, the expected date of farrow, and then make yourself available to attend to the sow. You don't clean the piglets. Like I told you, we had a case where the sow farrowed and the piglets were covered in dirt and grime, and all these things potentially carry bacteria and might affect the piglet's health. Also, we spoke about cross-fostering. So when you apply cross-fostering, don't just apply it randomly. A sow farrows, maybe you have another sow that is taking care of some piglets. Immediately, you just take those piglets from this sow that just farrowed and give to or foster to another nursing sow without considering colostrum. So colostrum is important, very, very important. You must allow the piglets to access colostrum from their mother before fostering. And you must also look at the interval. You don't just take a small piglet that's less than a few hours of life and then take to another sow that is nursing about 3 days or 4 days old piglets. So random cross-fostering is frowned at. Overloading good sows. So even when you are fostering, you ensure that you don't foster and then overload the foster mother. And then ignoring the sow body condition, very, very important. We just mentioned this. The sow body condition is important. You need to provide unrestricted access to water, a lot of water. You need to increase the feed for the sow, monitor our body condition, ensure that the pen or the farrow crate is structured in a way that does not cause the sow to be stressed. So the CD36 being an hyperprolific sow, it changes the production conversation. We have said just now that the CD36 is not just about the number of piglets that she can potentially produce, but the number of piglets that she is able to win. And she's been selected to win a high number of piglets from what she produces. So we are changing the conversation, not just from how many pigs were born to how many were raised, and how many were weaned. And we also have data. The data we have from farmers who are already working with the CD36 shows that a lot of farmers are able to win more than 85% of the piglets produced by the sow. So if you do your calculation, We've seen farmers produce about 20, and they're able to win around 17 or 18 of those piglets. So yes, she is not just able to produce a large litter size, she's also able to win them well. So the CD36, rewards people, she rewards process, and she rewards discipline. Those very, very important. Process and discipline. So as a farmer, there is no miracle in what you are doing. What you need to do is ensure that you still discipline in how you operate, consistent in how you work with the animal. So what are the takeaways? I just want to just summarize. What have we learned so far? So large litter size requires a different management approach. The mistake will be when you approach the CD36, which is an hyperprolific sow, you approach her in the same manner which you have been working with your maybe the other ones that have been giving you average or inferior number. So it requires a management system that is very precise, not just luck. And then again, we said the first hours, which is where colostrum is produced, defines survival of the piglets. We've also said that sow care defines milk, and then structure defines profits. So these animals that you have had, they are more or less like a machine, a tool for you to make profits. But for you to do this, you need to create precision in what you are doing. You need to take care of the animal, and the animal will in turn take care of you. So, final message, poor management is one of the problems that we have seen so far with farmers. Poor management compromises everything. When you acquire a sow with this kind of genetic capacity, you need to improve the management levels, your farm management levels. You need to create a system within your farm to be able to get the right kind of result. So the CD36 is going to give you that result, provided you render good management in your farm. So we've come to the end, and we would like to take questions.